Hello, everyone. This is a special telephone town hall meeting for members of the Telecommunications Workers Union. This is a live meeting taking place right now for TWU members across Canada. My name is Brad James, and I'll help keep today's phone call moving along. Tonight you'll hear from TWU President Lee Riggs, United Steelworkers Canadian National Director Ken Newman, and Steelworkers International President Leo Gerard. They'll be discussing the exciting merger between two proud unions, the TWU and the USW. The merger is now proceeding to a vote of TWU members. This comes after delegates to the TWU Special Convention this past Saturday voted by over 78% in favor of this renewed merger agreement. We'll start the town hall in just a few minutes, but members from across Canada are still joining in, and so while we're doing that, I want to remind you of a few things. First, at any time during the phone call, you can get in line to ask a question live by pressing 9 on your phone. So once again, at any time in the call, press 9 and you'll be placed in line to ask a question, and we will have lots of questions. So it looks like plenty of people are continuing to join the call, and so we'll get things started and kick it off with a hello to TWU President Lee Riggs. Lee?
Thanks, Brad, and I'd like to say hello to all the members of the TWU from across Canada who are on this call right now. You know, today's town hall we're going to be covering a few different topics. We're going to be talking about the main points of this merger, and I want to talk a little bit about the enhancements and the expansions from the initial merger agreement. We're going to be informing you, the membership, and others about this agreement as we go forward. And towards the end here, we're going to talk about the actual voting process. And of course, there'll be lots of time for questions and answers so that all of you will have an opportunity to ask your questions. And remember, all the details and the full merger agreement are on the website at www.wearestrongertogether.ca.
Once again, let me just explain about the how to ask a question. I misinformed you before. To ask a question, press on your keypad *3. That's *3 to ask a question, and you'll be placed in the queue. Now we're going to go back to Lee. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for that. So let's get started here. So what we were talking about here is that as we are now contending with even larger and more aggressive, more global corporations, every aspect of our work as trade unionists has been affected, especially around bargaining. And as you all know, the grievance and arbitration process has also been affected by our employers. The daily representation that we give to our members is what the union can do best for everyone, and we need to have the assistance as TELUS grows bigger and stronger. Politics, as we all know, is something that we need to be involved in. Legislation that comes down from the governments affects all of our members across the country. And public policy and telecommunications, as we've seen through the Conservative governments, particularly around issues such as Verizon that we most recently saw. So we have an obligation as a union to protect and improve our collective agreements to make them better for all of our members across the country. We need to defend our pensions against the corporations such as TELUS and Shaw in British Columbia who want to actually cut the pensions and remove them from our membership. And we need to build a better future for our younger members that are coming into the corporation right now.
So once again, if you've just joined us and members from the country, across the country are still signing on to the call, this is a special telephone town hall meeting for TWU members across Canada. It's a live meeting taking place right now across the country. We'll hear from TWU National President Lee Riggs, Steelworkers Canadian National Director Ken Newman, and Steelworkers International President Leo Gerard as they discuss how this merger will build collective bargaining power for employees of TELUS, Shaw, and other companies where you and your fellow members work. And again, you can ask questions during the call simply and get in line by pressing *3 on your phone. Once again, press *3 and you'll be able to get in line to ask a question. I'll turn things back to Lee.
Thanks, Brad. So this merger with the United Steelworkers will equip us for better bargaining in 2015. There's a strike fund that will be available to us, which will backstop us, which is over $300 million right now, and has almost 1 million people paying into it. This merger agreement expands and invigorates our members' activism through training. It sets us up for growth, and it builds upon the strengths that we already have within the TWU. It balances the preservation of our autonomy with the foundation of support from the United Steelworkers. And it gives us a much stronger national and, in fact, global voice. This merger gives us the strength and the tools to meet all of our obligations. Now I'd like to introduce Leo Gerard, the International President of the United Steelworkers. Leo is a Canadian, and he heads the entire union and is one of the most respected trade union leaders in North America and around the globe. Leo?
Thank you very much, Lee, and I'm always proud to say not only am I a Canadian, I'm a Canadian from Sudbury, and that always makes me feel good to think of my hometown. Last Saturday I had the opportunity and the privilege to address the delegates to your special convention on the merger in Toronto, and I'm happy to say, as has already been reported, they voted by an overwhelming 78% in favor of approving this merger and in favor of taking it to the membership for a vote. Let me just say that part of the goal of the United Steelworkers is to help create an activist labor movement, and to be a leading union in an activist labor movement, we need to be an activist union. And so as we've gone forward working with your merger committee and your advisory committee to work on the merger, we've worked on things that will help us to build a stronger union by taking the best of both of our unions and bringing it together. And by doing that, we're blending the strength of our two unions. We're making sure that there's going to be literally hundreds, if not thousands, of opportunities for rank-and-file individuals to participate. And I'll run through some of the things that we've agreed to. But we're trying to make the rank-and-file have a greater opportunity to participate in the union. And it gives us an opportunity to build a stronger future together. One of the things that I'm extremely proud of is that in the merger agreement, we went about trying to build for the future. We've built a program where we're going to train literally over 1,500, almost 1,800 different training for members of the TWU. We're going to put together more what we call building power programs, how to build power at the grassroots level so that we can negotiate better and better collective agreements. We're building a program for the next generation, bringing young workers, young men and women who may not know anything about the labor movement, bringing them into the labor movement, bringing them into our training programs. We've looked at you heard mention of our Strike and Defense Fund. Our Strike and Defense Fund is now close to $310 million. The Strike and Defense Fund is something that we've been very proud of because it, in fact, saves more strikes than it supports. Because when an employer sees that you're not going to be able to starve us out, they're more than likely going to come to terms with a collective agreement. That we've got a health and safety training. We've agreed to put $1 million initially into a strategic campaign to look at organizing in the telecommunications sector. Looking at we can organize some of the folks who work from home even. How do we do that and build that? I was asked if that $1 million represented a maximum, and my answer was no, because that $1 million is a symbolic statement that we're saying that we're going to work with the TWU in the merger and following the merger to start organizing once again aggressively with a plan in the telecommunications sector. We've looked at putting together programs for our retirees we call Steelworker Organization of Active Retirees, and that's because we've got people that have given 10, 20, 30, 40 years to the union or to the workplace and have experience, and when they retire, we should make an opportunity for them if they want to participate. We do health and safety training. We've got a legal department that's going to be totally available to the TWU, but we've also set aside some money. I think my memory's right, $750,000 initially to help offset some of the costs of arbitrations that are stacked up. So the program that we've wanted to build with the TWU is one to have an activist union that's going to be able to grow the rank and file participation both in the union and in the labor movement. And so that doing that kind of work means we're going to have to be active legislatively. We're going to have a voice up on the Hill in Washington. It also means we're going to have some actions at the provincial level. So we're going to look at our legislative action and build a program so that we take TWU members who will hopefully become steelworkers after the vote and train them and put them up in the Hill in Ottawa so that when they're in Ottawa, they can be the voice for telecommunication workers, whether it's Verizon or someone else who's trying to move into the market. The voice of the workplace, the voice of the workers has to be heard, and we'll do that so that the programs that we're trying to build in this merger are there's no second-class steelworkers. We've had 18 mergers, as I said to the convention. In those 18 mergers we've had, I would be shocked and amazed if you could find anyone that would say that that wasn't the right thing to do, because each one of those has strengthened the organization that came into our union, and it strengthened our union because we learn from each other and we take the best of each organization and build a stronger organization. So I'm extremely happy, and when we get to questions, I talk to you about strategic campaigns, about bargaining support, about training that we're doing on occupational health and safety, basic tool courses on how to defend the collective agreement. We've committed to training people so that we can have train the trainers, so that you can have former TWU members, hopefully steelworkers in the future, trained so that they can teach courses right in their own area, or they can join in and teach courses to the broader union and have those trained trainers within the existing organization. So I see this as a very exciting time. I see this as an opportunity to send a signal to employers. As I said, the Steelworkers Union don't go looking for fights. What we want to do is negotiate the best collective agreements that we can for our members, and then out of that, we want to give them the best representation we can, whether it's on the Hill in Ottawa, or whether it's in the province, or whether it's in their local municipality, or whether it's just with their regular employer. We want to give them the best representation that they're entitled to have, so that they can go home safe at the end of the day, and knowing that they have a union standing by their side and that's activist and is prepared to get into the fight if that's what it takes. So thank you very much, and I'll turn it back to Brad.
Once again, if you've got a question or a comment that you'd like to make, a question for Lee Riggs, National President of the TWU, for Ken Newman, Canadian National Director of the Steelworkers, or Leo Gerard, Steelworkers International President, press *3 on your phone now. Press *3, and we'll put you in the queue to ask some questions. And now I'll turn it back to Lee.
Thanks, Brad, and thank you, Leo. You know, I just wanted to go back to something that you said there I think is extremely important, and you talked about having support in Washington, and I think that is something that we've never had lobbyists in Washington ever before, and with this last assault from Verizon trying to come into Canada, that's something where we definitely would see a huge asset there with the lobbyists in Washington as well as in Ottawa. So thank you for bringing that up. I think it's a very excellent point. Ken, I'd like to turn it over to you now. Ken Newman, the Canadian National Director for the Steelworkers. Ken, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you very much, Lee and Leo, for being here. And let me just begin by saying that, look, at all the merger fundamentals remain in place in this new agreement. As you already heard, that you'll have immediate access to the steelworkers in excess of $300 million strike and defense fund on the same basis as all steelworkers members. Immediately, you'll have immediate support for collective bargaining and access to the steelworkers' leading strategic campaigns and corporate research expertise. The creation of the new Steelworkers Local Union, the Telecommunication Workers Union, United Steelworkers Local 1944, honoring the year of TWU's founding. You'll have geographical and organizational continuity of existing TWU locals, which will not be affected. The TWU National Union will maintain your own committees while being involved with steelworker committees. The TWU Benevolent Fund and all other assets, including your building in Burnaby, remain controlled by the TWU National Union membership and the TWU Benevolent Society Board of Directors. You will be the largest local union in the steelworkers in Canada. As such, both your rights and your responsibilities will be large indeed. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Ken. Once again, if you're just joining the call, because the calls are still going out across the country and people are still calling in with inbound calls, this special telephone town hall meeting taking place live right now across Canada for inviting thousands of TW members from every region invited to take part. And once again, press *3 on your phone if you'd like to ask a question. And if you don't want to ask a question live on the air, you'll still be able to leave a personal message at the end of this telephone town hall with a question or a comment, and we will get back to you in every case. And so Ken and Lee and Leo, we are getting a good number of people on the call, and we're going to take one question right now. We're gonna. It's a question from Alice, and it looks to me like Alice, I think, is from the province of Quebec. But Alice, if you could ask your question and tell us where you're from and what local you're from as well.
Yes, I am in Montreal, downtown, Sun Life Building. I'm a regular rank and file member. I'm not a shop steward or anyone with aspirations to climb through the labor movement. My aspirations are to do well in my job, not in the parallel movement. Although I can see that there could be some benefits for some people who want to grow in another direction. I am not anti-union, even though I think my following comments may sound that way, but I do feel I'm anti-mega union. When you talk about this mega strike fund, it makes me really, really nervous because I remember a history of so many companies with mega strike funds that actually go broke or close down, and companies like Cadbury, other companies that just close because they have the strike fund going, but the negotiation isn't really there. It also makes me nervous because I'm also a TELUS stockholder. It also makes me nervous because TELUS, like any other company, any other government, any parallel organization, is not perfect, but I really consider it very progressive. I know that when I've had occasion to talk to people working for Shaw and other companies, they weren't as happy in the workplace. So maybe we're not talking the same type of aims. And I'm really concerned when you get into something this big because it feels like big government to me.
Alice,
that was more of a comment.
Would you like your comment directed, I think, but to TW President Lee Riggs to maybe respond to some of your comments, and then we'll keep moving on. Thank you.
Hi, Alice. Yeah, thanks a lot for that question. I actually think that our aims actually are the same. And you said you were concerned about the strike fund, and having a strike fund. I mean, the TWU has a strike fund, $17 million, and the United Steelworkers have a strike and defense fund of over $300 million. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going out on strike. But what it does mean is it sends a very strong message to employers that we're not going to be starved out, that they have to be bargained in good faith with all of us. And I think that's the biggest thing right there. So thank you for your question, and I hope that helps you a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to take one more question right now, and then return to the remaining part of the presentation. And we've got Stephen Lancaster from Vaudreuil, Quebec. Stephen.
Hey, thanks, gentlemen, for taking my question. So maybe just a little bit follow-up question to the strike fund that we were talking about here. And it sounds really great that we're talking about $300 million, but do we have an idea of what that actually translates to? If ever there was a strike, would it make a difference in terms of how much we would get weekly or anything like that in terms of being able to sustain ourselves? Because I know we can, as a union, maybe not get starved out, but I can certainly get starved out on a weekly basis if I can't pay my bills or anything like that. So does that make a difference or anything?
Well, look at it's Leo Gerard. Let me just back up a bit. The Strike and Defense Fund, as I said, and I said it fairly quickly as we we're going through some issues, the Strike and Defense Fund actually is more of a deterrent against having strikes than it has been in order to support strikes, because when it gets to that size, there's a very strong comment to the company, whoever that is, when we're bargaining. And the reality is that what happens is that the allotment goes to the local union. So there's an allotment of $200 and some per delegate, per employee, and that money goes to the local union, and the local union then determines how to allocate that money so that they can support the workers and support the strike. In addition to that, we've designed a strike and defense fund so that when the money is transferred to the individuals, it's transferred as a gift from workers, so that you don't have to pay any taxes on that. In Canada, over the years, you've probably seen where the other unions have a strike fund and they give money to the individual worker, then the individual worker gets taxed on that. We've designed the strike fund in a much different way so that it goes to the local union and it's given to the workers on the basis of, quote, their need. So that, again, in my home local in Sudbury, where we had 3,500 people, our local does all kinds of things to enhance that ability of that strike and defense fund, and we have an emergency fund as well, so that if someone's in trouble, we're not, to be brutally honest, we're not going to pay the back rent for somebody who hasn't paid their rent in 3 months. But at the same time, if someone's on the verge of getting evicted, we have a support committee that will come in and they'll use parts of the strike fund to help that on an emergency basis. So all of the basic rules of the strike fund that are set get transferred to the local union, and the local union gets to decide through its leadership and through its membership how it will allocate those resources. And we have a pretty strong record of getting good settlements without strikes, but we also have a pretty strong record of supporting our members during the strikes.
Hi, Stephen. It's Lee Riggs here, too. And the other thing is that the steelworkers have their strike and defense fund, and we have our strike and defense fund, and we can actually add to that if there was actually strike pay. But the one thing I wanted to say is that, paying strike pay and having people walk around central offices or walking around buildings with picket signs doesn't really work anymore. It just doesn't work. So we can use that strike and defense fund to build a campaign, to build a strategic campaign with the steelworkers, which they actually have a whole department that deals with strategic campaigns. And that keeps our folks like you at work getting paid by TELUS. And we can use that strategic campaign to assist us in making sure that we get a fair collective agreement for everybody.
Lee raised a good point. It's Leo Gerard again. I want to supplement that. The Strike and Defense Fund isn't sitting there by itself. We have what's called a Building Power program, and literally hundreds of TWU members we've put through that program already, and really are ready to put through thousands more. And then once we have negotiations, we hopefully will get a settlement that the members are happy enough with that they'll ratify. But in case that doesn't happen, we have a strategic campaigns department, and that strategic campaigns department finds ways to put additional leverage on the employer to help bring them to the bargaining table to get that good agreement we're talking about. So the strike fund doesn't sit there by itself. It's part of an overall collective bargaining strategy to give our members the best shot at a good agreement.
So once again, press star 3 if you'd like to ask a question and get in the queue, and we're going to return to the presentation with some more comments from Lee and Ken and Leo, and we'll have some more questions toward the end. So, Lee.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. And I just want to talk about some of the enhancements to the merger agreement. And Leo's touched on this a little bit, but first off, training and education. So we have an engagement program that truly is unprecedented in the Canadian labor movement. We've got triple the number of union educational opportunities for TWU members, and I'm not talking about the senior leadership here. I'm talking about rank and file members who go to work every day. We got 1,800 training opportunities in total that are coming up, and that's going to be close to 15% of our overall membership. So during this initial focus, it's on a broad engagement as we're moving towards for the 2015 bargaining through the regional, the local delivery of the Building Power program that Leo talked about. Initially for 600 members, and then there's going to be another 600 members that are going to receive this training as we move forward through future bargaining. So, and this merger agreement here, it also commits to much more educational opportunities for our members. And for these educational opportunities, the United Steelworkers, they cover the travel costs, the accommodations, and there's a wage stipend of up to $800 that is paid as well. So that's a huge commitment right off the bat from the United Steelworkers. But some of the things, one of the things that has been very important to me over my 30-plus year career here in the TWU is health and safety. And we're going to be doing initial training of 75 people, which is the co-chairs from across the country, and then another 150 members of the health and safety committees as we move through the transition period. There's going to be a training for our young members that are coming in youth leadership called the Next Generation Training. And again, Leo talked about that as well, but there's going to be committed training for our young members there of 50 members in leadership. The Steel Workers has a program for women who are in leadership, which is called the Women of Steel. And there's going to be 50 scholarships there for women who are interested in becoming leaders within the union, or within their locals for that matter, across the country. We know that legislative and political action is a major part of the initiative that both of these our unions have done, and we've been very involved with that in the past and will continue to be. And for that, there's going to be 120 members that want to get more actively involved in political or legislative courses that we're going to be putting on. Now, we all know that TELUS has continued to contract out and offshore a lot of our work, and we know that there's many, many opportunities out there for organizing of our members. And we know currently that we get phone calls every week from companies and workers that work for those companies that want to be organized into a trade union. And the steelworkers already has been down to Las Vegas looking at that Las Vegas call center that we know that TELUS has down in there. So to get the organizing kicked off, we've got 20 members that are going to be trained there and a commitment, which is double from the previous merger agreement, of $1 million to facilitate that organizing. So for people that want to be involved in organizing, they're going to receive that intensive training. USW also has their tool courses, and those could be 130 members plus 20 instructors that are going to be trained, which will also teach the TWU courses and USW courses jointly with each other. But 130 members are going to be involved in various courses that the USW has, from basic shop stewards, advanced shop stewards, or parliamentary procedure courses, plus many, many others. The steelworkers also have a leadership program that is unique to their trade union, and it's the USW Leadership Scholarship Program. And there's been 35 scholarships under this merger agreement that have been granted to people, and it's a 4-year program for people that actually do want to move up through the ranks of the union leadership to become the future leaders of the union. And human rights education, there'll be 50 members there that are trained as well in courses on human rights issues. Now, another enhancement to this new agreement is in the area of legal support, and there's been a lot of talk about that. And we've now got a reaffirmed commitment from the United Steelworkers to have a full-time lawyer in Vancouver, and that'll be on top of the 7 lawyers that they have in Ontario and 1 in Quebec. And the one that they actually have in Ontario, or some of the lawyers they actually have in Ontario, also speak French as well. So that's an increase there. We've got a 20% increase in the steelworker funding to offset arbitration costs, and that's that $750,000 that Leo talked about in the first year. And then in the second year, actually going to be $500,000 and $250,000 in the following year. Now, any of that money that is not used for our legal costs will roll over and be retained for future years. So if we don't use it, we get to keep it to the future. So there's a range of support that's also provided by the USW legal department at no cost to the TWU National Local Union, and these are costs that we currently do incur. And we would use the steelworkers' lawyers for any issues that arise out of legal issues that arise out of picket line activities, or cases that have to go in front of the federal or provincial labor boards alleging duties of failure to represent, for example. If there was any bad faith bargaining complaints that were had against the union,
or the company.
Or the company, absolutely. Unfair labor practice complaints and certification applications for when we are actually organizing people. And any proceedings against employers to enforce our arbitration awards, which does happen from time to time where the company doesn't agree with the decision of an arbitrator, or any complex or precedent-setting grievance or arbitration cases. Any cases around that would go to the United Steelworkers, and they would be paying the cost out of that. So the TWU National Local Union, though, will retain substantial resources to engage our own counsel for any arbitrations that we choose to pursue on our own. Now, I talked a little bit about organizing, and the organizing budget, as I said, is doubled in size from the last agreement, now at $1 million, and that's to launch organizing within the telecommunications industry. And we know that there's lots of opportunities out there. We don't have to guess about them, and we know because we're being contacted by workers, and like I say, we know now that TELUS has areas that are not organized. So with the full backing of the steelworkers organizing and legal, their communications staff, all will be coordinated by the TWU National Local Union Organizing Committee. And the other thing that is very important to understand is that any new units or in the telecom industry that are organized all go into the TWU National Local Union, and that'll only make us stronger.
It's Leo Gerard again. Let me add to what Lee just said, that I said in my comments that our objective in our union has been for quite some time now to build a strong base of opportunity for rank and file members to participate in the union, to broaden the base of the union, broaden the opportunity to participate, because we're convinced that the more rank and file members participate in the union, the stronger the union will be. The stronger the union we have, the more we're able to represent our members and do collective bargaining. And if you followed the list of things we've committed to with that Lee just went through with the TWU, that objective is to build a strong rank and file participatory process within the TWU once it merges with the steelworkers. And Lee touched on a point that I had commented on about Washington. Our union has built a global alliance all over the planet. It's in Australia, South Africa, Brazil, Germany, the UK, and in fact, our friends in the UK, we helped create a global union called Workers Uniting that's registered in 4 countries: United States, Canada, Great Britain, and Ireland. And they're anxious to start having joint programs with the TWU following the merger. Lee made some comments about things that are going on with TELUS in particular, of call centers in the U.S. We want to be able to use our legislative action, whether it's in Ottawa or whether it's in Washington or whether it's in London, England, to be able to bring global pressure on if that's what we need, whether it's in collective bargaining, organizing, or administration of our collective agreements. So again, that's to make sure that we can build an activist-based union that has room for thousands of rank and file activists to take part in the union and broaden the base of activity in the union so that the employer isn't always able to hoodwink us.
Thanks, Leo. So we've also made some other improvements to the actual merger agreement, and this lengthens the time for the transition into the USW structure. Now, our elections are going to remain unchanged until 2018. So that will be retaining the role of convention and moving into the one member, one vote for executive elections in the spring of 2018. So there's a new arbitration clause as well that sets out a way to fairly resolve any differences that do come up from the merger agreement. So if there is I just want to say that this agreement here is not like a regular round of negotiations that you have with an employer. This is 2 great trade unions that have entered into an agreement to make themselves and the labor movement stronger. And we put in a clause here that in the result, or as if there's a disagreement, that we have a way to get out of it through an arbitrator. But we frankly don't think it's going to be necessary.
Once again, we do have a couple questions in the queue, but I remind you now, if you've got a question, press *3, and we'll take some more questions after a little bit more presentation from Lee.
Thanks, Brad. So as far as our dues goes, we do have stability within our dues. We've got increased services to our members without any dues increase. So your dues are not going to increase. Your dues will remain at 1.7%, so they will not be increasing. With our full access to the USW Strike and Defense Fund, we'll no longer need to direct that 0.4% of our members' gross pay to the Benevolent Society, so that will become part of our admin fund. Now, these funds can be devoted to other activities in support of our members, and the TWU National Local Union will contribute dues to the USW, and starting in 2015, be 0.4% of the gross earnings of our members, which is a 23.5% of the overall revenue. It'll be increasing annually until 2020 and after that. So 0.7% of the gross earnings of our members, or 41.2% of the overall revenue. And the detailed financial overview that was provided by our Secretary-Treasurer at the last weekend special convention shows really just how stable we are going forward. So we'll soon be posting all of that financial information on our website, and you'll be able to view that at www.wearestrongertogether.ca. So here's the bottom line on our finances. This merger puts us in a stable financial position now and in the future on a pure dollars and cents basis. And on top of that, the merger agreement expressly provides TWU members immediate and full access to the over $300 million Strike and Defense Fund of the United Steelworkers, plus the full access to the $9 million organizing fund, and full access to the USW legal department, their educational resources, communications, and research capability and capacity, and the use of the Steelworkers' professional, expert, strategic campaign staff, and their professional bargainers.
So before Lee moves on to the next phase, we do have a couple some questions in the queue, and we'd like to hear from Brian, who's got a question for Lee. Brian, go ahead and give us your local number and your city and your question, please.
Hi, Lee. It's Brian Fellow from 502 Toronto. Lee, I guess specifically to Toronto, we've seen client care, basically the reps there be moved, basically client care shifted around, those positions taking on different roles that possibly could be other roles within TELUS. My question is, if we don't merge, how do we take on TELUS as a multinational company? How do we do that? How do we fight those jobs going to Guatemala, Romania, overseas, even here in North Bay? You know, how do we do that if we don't have the support from the steel workers now?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks for that question. You know, this is something that we've been talking about for quite a long time about how to fight TELUS on the offshoring and the contracting out of our work. And frankly, that's that's a major part of why we've reached into this merger with the United Steelworkers. The fact is that the TWU just does not have the capacity to reach outside of the borders of Canada right now, even into the United States, let alone into Guatemala or into some of the Baltic countries or India, where they have been offshoring and contracting out some of that work to. So how do we fight TELUS against that if we don't merge? Well, we're going to continue to do what we can do. We've got this strategic alliance, with the Steelworkers and with the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. But we've seen that that can only go so far, and we're having to pay our own freight on that. We can't ask or expect to ask other unions to pay the freight to fight against these large corporations, and frankly, we can't afford it. So that's where we're entering into this merger, and the capacity that the United Steelworkers have globally will only assist us. And I think that I'm very excited about the opportunity to start moving out beyond the borders to help our members where their work is going to right now.
It's Leo Gerard again. Let me just add to what Lee said. We've been globalizing our union now for close to 12 years and building those alliances in different continents, in different regions, different industries, so that if we end up, whether it's in an organizing drive, a collective bargaining administration, or a collective bargaining negotiations, we want to broaden the ability of our union to respond to the challenges ahead. And in the point that Lee just made in the question that was asked, I'm on the executive committee of an organization called Industrial. It's a global organization of all the unions that we can find, and it's an organization of over 50 million people. I can tell you, if we've got some delegates on from Quebec, they might remember this. We got locked out by a company, Rio Tinto, and Rio Tinto wanted to, when someone quit, retired, left the employ, they wanted to replace that person with a contractor. That was their proposal in bargaining. Our members said no to that. They got locked out. We took Rio Tinto on in 27 different countries, and in the end, the company took that proposal off the table, and our members got a good agreement. We had a rally in a small town in northern Quebec, and we had 8,000 people there, of which probably 1,000 were from other parts of the world. because of the quality of the representation that they know we give our members and the solidarity we've built over the years with global organizations. So we want to be able to do that if need be, whether it's, I said, organizing or collective bargaining with TELUS, Shaw, or anyone else that you represent.
Thanks, Leo. So delegates from across the country this last weekend gathered in Toronto for a special convention where they voted 78.1% in favor of this new merger agreement between the TWU and the United Steelworkers. Now, this very strong majority vote significantly exceeds the vote that was taken by delegates earlier this year to restart the merger process. So I believe that this increase in support shows that our delegates know that this merger will benefit the members that they represent across the country. And this very strong pro-merger vote of our delegates came after a full review covering all aspects of the merger agreement and debate. And this included a full financial disclosure by the Secretary-Treasurer. This was the 18th merger agreement by the United Steelworkers, and these mergers are not designed to fail. And this is a very good agreement and one that will only assist our members. So what's next? So this week, we have mailed a detailed merger summary and an overview letter to all eligible voting members. Now, the overview letter lists a series of merger information meetings that are happening in your region in the weeks ahead. And of course, the full merger agreement can be read and downloaded from www.wearestrongertogether.ca. Now, there'll be lots of updates by email. So if you are not signed up to receive the emails from us yet, you can do so by going to the Union website at www.TWU-STT.ca and clicking on the Stay Informed section of the website. Now, the ballots and the merger agreement will be mailed to the members on Friday, October the 10th, and you should receive your ballot the week of Thanksgiving. And electronic voting will open up on Tuesday, October the 14th, and then we'll close on Friday, November the 7th.
Thanks, Lee. Once again, press *3 on your phone if you'd like to ask a question. If you don't want to ask a question live on the air, you can leave a personal message at the end with a question or a comment, and we will get back to all questions. So let's return to a couple callers, and we're going to take now Stefano. Stefano, if you can ask your question, give us your city and your local number, and fire away.
Yeah, local 502 in Toronto, and I totally agree with what I heard. It's better to negotiate from a position of strength than negotiate from a position of weakness. I do not understand people that want to negotiate from a position of weakness. I think I don't want to paint the world as a jungle, but it can be, and I don't want to be in a jungle without being armed. So I don't like the position of weakness. That's just my personality, and I don't understand people that want to be in a position of weakness and they want to come out there to the wild world. So I want to be in a position of strength, but I think our union is reasonable. They don't ask for crazy things or they don't make crazy demands. We're basically we ask for basic human rights to be respected, and I don't understand people that are afraid, and I don't see that fear is going to get them anywhere. It's just going to make them worse off in the end. And I think it's better to be courageous and vote yes for this merger. My question actually is, I was so mad when we lost last time, and I wanted to understand if Lee can explain this to me, and Leo, why do we need 64% instead of 51% to get this passed to win this?
Stefano, let me do it real quickly, then I'll turn it over to Lee. Sometime in the past, I don't know when, your Constitution was designed that you need a 66 2/3%. Lee can address that. We came very, very close the last time, and I'm very convinced that part of the reason that we didn't succeed is we had outside interference that put together a video And that video was full of lies and misrepresentations. National Director Ken Newman and your President Lee Riggs tracked that down, and they actually had the union that interfered confess that they interfered, and they've actually sent us now a letter of support. And I don't want to get into making that union look bad, so I just can tell you that that's happened. They've confessed, and they've got a letter of support now. The other thing I want to tell you is that I think you're absolutely right, and part of what we're trying to do in our union is to bargain from the best strength we can create. That's why we do pre-collective bargaining training, so that we know the strengths and weaknesses of the employer. We know what our strengths and weaknesses are. We know what the market says. We know what the industry is doing. We do strategic research, and we actually train not 5 or 10 people on the bargaining committee, but we train hundreds of people across the country in a national local. In fact, today, I think Ken can attest to this, today our national railway local is kicking off bargaining. They're meeting in our national office. And we've been working, getting ready for that bargaining now for 4 months, doing training, doing development, giving them background, understanding the industry, so that we can position ourselves from a bargaining position of strength. The Strike and Defense Fund is exactly that. It's a strike and defense fund. It's meant to signal to the employer our strength. And then, once we're in bargaining, if we don't reach a collective agreement, we've got a global strategy and we've got a strategic campaigns department. We'll go put pressure on, let's call it TELUS. If TELUS has something going on in Great Britain or in Brazil or in Romania or in Guatemala, we'll send the delegates down. We have a lockout at Crown Cork and Seal, now called Crown Holdings, 140 people. Today they're in Philadelphia. We're bringing them to Philadelphia. They're crashing the company headquarters, not crashing it, I mean trashing it, but they're showing up at the company headquarters to picket and let everybody know in the corporate offices what's going on. We're putting pressure on them all over the world. We've got letters coming from Brazil, from South Africa, from India, literally. And so that's so we can design to be from a position of strength, as you said, Stefano, and I'll turn it back to Lee.
Yeah, thanks for that, Leo. And thanks for your question too, Stefano. And just to specifically go to your question, our Constitution says that we need 66 2/3 of our membership to ratify any change to the Constitution and to merge. So that's why it is. I can tell you that no one was more disappointed than I was with the result of the last time. But this time, with the help of everybody on this call, working as hard as everybody can and letting people know that this is going to be a good deal for our membership, and as we move forward with bargaining with TELUS, hopefully we'll get a much better result and get the 78% or higher that we got at our convention from the convention delegates. So thanks again, Stefano.
Okay, excuse me. Thanks, Lee. I should also note that the TWU now has a new Facebook page, and that is at facebook.com/TWUSTT. And that's TWUSTT with no spaces. You can click on that and get new merger updates and new updates from your union. Now we've got a question from Amanda. So Amanda, if you can give us your local and your city and your question. Go ahead, please. Amanda, are you there? Amanda was waiting for a little bit, so give her a second again. Amanda may have jumped off, so I think we're going to go, and we've got a comment from Brenda Forward. Brenda in Barrie. Brenda, are you there?
Hi. Yes, I am. Thank you. Yes, I am. Thank you. I just want to say that I was on the the advisory committee, and met with the negotiation committee quite often. I think we worked very well together, and everything was for all the members across the country, not for certain people. And I think this is the best thing for a union at this time. And I just want to applaud the steelworkers and the TWU negotiation committee for working so hard on this.
Well, thanks a lot, Brenda. And for those of you on the call that don't know Brenda, Brenda is the chairperson of the Finance Committee, and all of this, of course, was run by the Finance Committee, and to make sure that they understood all the finances around this with the Secretary-Treasurer. And we've got their unanimous support, actually, from the Finance Committee for this merger agreement, as well as the unanimous support, actually, from the Constitution Committee as well. So we're very, very pleased with that.
So we've got another question lined up. We've got Ben, Ben from St. Catharines. Ben, give us your local number and your question. Move ahead, please.
Hi, yes, Ben Laxa from. I'm the president of Local 503, and we're part of the MBD team. We're going through a significant downsizing right now, and we just lost about. We're going to lose about 40% of our members. Not our members of 403, but 40% of the people who work in my department, and then there's downsizings across the country as well. The question is, what's going to be left? Like we're losing so many people out here, and I know we lost them in Alberta and BC. As TELUS keeps doing this and outsourcing, because all of our jobs are going to contractors, there was nothing the union could do, and everybody's in our local is upset because there's nothing that the union can do because they followed the letter of law, and so they notified the union of their intention to outsource this work and change our jobs. I guess just the question's not very clear, but it's basically will there be any left in this area to vote or to be local? Because, and then secondly, if you do decide to strike, and will there be anybody who can strike? Because all of us are going to be either non-unionized or so few in number that I don't see how they're going to do that. They're just been preparing contractors for the last little while, or last few years, just to keep doing our jobs and outsourcing this and outsourcing that, and it's just very discouraging. And I'm wondering, are we going to fight hard enough that we can stop them from doing this next time, so that we can stand up and say, no, we can't outsource my job, or no, you can't tell me I can't do this, or stuff like that. Will there be somebody fighting to stand up and say, okay, we're going to stop outsourcing, we're going to strike, and if we're going to strike, are we going to stick by it so that we can take away this provision for them to do whatever they want, really?
Yeah, I've got your question there, Ben. And let me just start off first by saying that these initiatives by TELUS are not new. I came out of Kelowna, where we had hundreds of workers that worked in Kelowna, British Columbia, and they downsized there and moved people around almost in exactly the same situation that they're doing with your folks out there right now, where they gave them the opportunity to only move to Vancouver or to stay in Kelowna. And when you have hundreds of miles away, or you ask people to uproot their families where they've lived their whole lives, or in some cases were born in Kelowna, to be moved hundreds of miles away, it's completely unacceptable. In your case, it's even worse, because in your case they're asking Ben, you and other people to not only just move a few hundred miles away, but they're saying if you want a job, you need to move to British Columbia, or you need to move to Alberta, and moving across the country is not an option, I'll say, for most people. We need to fight the company on these, and to encourage them to find jobs for people in their areas where they work. And the company is going to continue to downsize and to offshore, but with the assistance of the steel workers, again, the same as it goes for bargaining, is that will give us a little more protection, a bigger, I'll say, a hammer to wield as far as encouragement to the employer to not take those initiatives. Now, if they actually do take a lot of our workers, which they have said, and say that they say that they're not going to be moving across the country, then what they've been saying to those people is, we'll hire you as contractors, right? Come back as a contractor. So we'll have an opportunity then, we think, with the steel workers to try to organize those contractors and bring people back into the fold again. But I can tell you, Ben, and for the other folks out there in Ontario that are being affected by this right now, we take this very seriously, and there is ongoing discussions, I know, with the business agent and the vice president around this issue, and we're doing our best to keep those jobs in Ontario.
It's Leo Gerard. Ben, let me just tell you that hopefully I believe this is a merger that would be extremely good for both organizations, and hopefully it will pass by overwhelming numbers. But let me tell you, we're not going to sit on the sidelines. I don't accept the fact that we can't do anything about it. I think that negotiations are coming up. We need to be smart. We need to do research. We need to say, take what Lee just said. How many jobs did you have in Kelowna? Where are those jobs now? If we had 300 people that worked in Kelowna and now we're down to 30, where did the other 270 go? Did they go to Guatemala? Did they go to contractors? Did you let, when our people leave, not replace them and replace them with a contractor? How much you're paying the contractor? And develop a strategy so that when we go into collective bargaining, we have a strategy about contracting out. And we have a strategy that's going to organize. And we have a strategy about putting strategic pressure on them through strategic campaigns. We have a strategy of training our rank and file. And just not accepting it that because they decreed it, that it has to be that way. And, I tell them, our members in the Steelworkers Union many times, maybe to the point where they're sick of hearing me. I can't guarantee that we're going to win every fight, but I can guarantee if we don't fight, we're going to lose. And I'm not one of the ones, and our union is not the kind of union that sits around and mopes and says, well, nothing we can do about it. We're going to fight about it. And I may not get another minute or another moment to say something. So let me just ask every of you that are on the phone and that can talk to people. All I'm asking you for is stay focused on the facts, stick to the truth, don't insult each other or your union. And if someone who's not involved in this from outside of the TWU or the steelworkers sticks their nose in it, tell them to go take a long walk off a short pier.
So, thanks very much, Ben. We're going to move to some closing comments now from Lee Riggs.
So I'd just like to thank everyone, for coming out of this call and getting engaged and taking part. I thought that the questions today were excellent, and they help us to move forward as a union. So please watch, for upcoming hotlines and other updates. Keep an eye on the website www.wearestrongertogether.ca, and we encourage you to vote yes when the voting begins in the next few weeks. Finally, feel free to stay on the line and leave us any questions or comments after this call ends. Thank you again, everyone, and have a great evening.